Yeah, it's time to start. I'll keep you timed. It's 1:33, so I'll keep you going. Let me just quickly introduce you. This is Pamela Todoroff. She is a lecturer 3 at U of M Dearborn, and she has been working with groups and doing really interesting things with big group projects, and been doing it for quite a while in Canvas. And so we're really lucky that she's come to show us her group project. So Pamela, take it away.
She's saying that because everybody, I want you to know that Rhonda and I are sisters.
She's my big sister.
This could be a real interesting session. We have done a number of conferences together, conference presentations together, and it does somehow usually devolve into the sister act, which sometimes is humorous, not always. This is a presentation about creating groups. I'm going to be focusing, of course, on Canvas because although I have a lot of experience with Blackboard and Moodle, the group work that I have done most recently is Canvas, and that's all I have really access to at this point. And I think this may have, I was only able to kind of pop in and out of yesterday's sessions because I was teaching a class actually. And this may already have been brought up, but I think collaboration and collaborative work, especially on an online class, in a fully online class, is really, really important because if you wanted to create an independent study, you would have done that. This is, most online classes are not independent studies. So you really need to create the opportunities for the students to not only share and create community, but also interact with each other. And in my case, because I teach writing at the University of Michigan Dearborn, I want them to actually learn how to write together. It is, in my case, it is one of the course objectives that they learn to work in project teams because my students typically are engineering students, professional writing students, engineering or business. And that means that when they are done with their school work, they will go into a workplace that requires collaborative writing. And we know from a number of studies from the AAUP and a number of other organizations, most of the employers say that the students don't know how to write. And so the biggest, one of the major learning objectives for all my courses is group work. And I need to tell my students up front that it's important to the success in this course. And this language that you see on that screen is directly from my syllabus, which I have posted to Canvas. And if you want to borrow that you're welcome to take it if any version of that would work for you. I highly recommend it. Now, we've said in a couple of the other sessions, we've talked about the advantages to creating a low-risk assignment, collaborative assignment early in the term. I recommend that you, if you're in Canvas, I recommend that you make it a discussion. I recommend that because it's easy enough. Most of the students have some familiarity with discussion forums, perhaps even asking them to reply to 2 of their classmates before a certain date, something like that, and actually including that in your rubric. I like to do a discussion forum though also because in Canvas, when you make it a group discussion, so you're separating your class into multiple groups so that they only see their group mates. This is the screen that you see here, and you can see that it actually creates links for you. So if I want to see what kind of conversation is going on in group 1, I can just poke right here and it'll take me directly to the group 1 discussion board. I like that. You'll also notice that in the information that I've given here, now I converted this, I had a hybrid class where I used this example. And the hybrid class would, let's say on a Thursday in class, in a face-to-face classroom, we would actually do this together. They would look at each other, get to know each other, because I think this was a week 2 exercise. And then over the weekend, they needed to appear in their group forum, their group discussion forum, and they needed to do a couple of other things with the same assignment. It made it easy for me to be able to track them since week 2, I certainly don't know these students well enough yet. So what do you do when you want to create and actually have appear in your grade book? So when I'm going to create a discussion forum, or if I'm going to create a group assignment, I need to put it someplace in my grade book if I'm going to grade it. And you do that by creating a group set. So as this slide will show you, on the left-hand menu, you have the people section. When you poke on that, it brings up this view. Now I'm using a work in progress, we call it at U of M Dearborn, WIP. So there are no students in this class, so you can't see any names. But you can see that this is a work in progress for me. I use it like a junk drawer. You can see that I have made several different kinds of group sets, and it gets a little confusing unless you actually name them. So in my current class, I'm going to be creating, this is summer 20, research teams. But the group set, whether it's a discussion board or an assignment, the group set will actually place it. It's like a large umbrella. It's like a module for the gradebook into which you can have one discussion, or you could have multiple assignments that fit into that group set. So especially if you're weighting your grades, if you created weights for them, the group sets will help organize them into the proper weighted section. So I think that's the best way to think about what a group set is. But if we poke on the group set, I've named the group set Summer 20 Research Teams. You can see it there. I want Canvas. I don't know these students real well yet, and I don't have a lot of time in a summer class. My summer class is only 7 weeks long, so it's abbreviated. So I'm gonna, instead of allowing the students to pick their own group mates or for me to do it manually, I'm gonna let Canvas do that. And then here you can see, after I've hit the save button, all of a sudden Canvas has put all of the students into these different groups. Now, if this had real students in it, I could go to these little tiny dots on the side here, and poke on this, and it would bring down all the students in that group. But then if I poke over here, it'll take me directly to that group's homepage within Canvas. So I'm going a little fast because I want to allow us to go backwards and answer questions. But if there are questions, Rhonda, that you think that I need to address right away, just pause or let me know, interrupt me. So once I've created the group set and I've got my groups all put together, then I go back into I'm in the module view here. Then you go back into your modules, and the same way you do every other assignment or every other discussion, you just poke on the plus sign and bring down and create the assignment. And I'm going to work with an assignment because the discussions are pretty intuitive. So you can see here, this is my summer class, the readings they need to do, the resources they're going to need to access. And I'm going to put this now, this is the assignment that's going to be under their homework header. And what I do is just create the assignment. And as somebody has mentioned in a previous session, it's really important to keep your naming conventions simple, descriptive, consistent. I will also say this. I do a lot of group work. The second half of each of my classes is one large group project with multiple assignments and or discussion forums inside of that project. What I have done is divided my group work. When I call an assignment or a discussion board a group, in this case, charter or contract, or if I call it a group discussion, then everybody in the group is going to get the same grade. I have that set up. If I just call it discussion board or something else, if I don't have the word group, then the students know, because I've told them this, they know that they will get individual grades. So if a student doesn't show up, he's going to get a 0, and all the other students will get whatever grade they earn. So it's an individual thing, and those will fit. I try to balance them so that I use the example with my students that if you remember the Harry Potter, the character of Hermione, who was such a brilliant student and always answered every question and knew all the answers and had read 47 books. Well, I always say every group is going to have a Hermione who's just going to take over things. So you want to be able to balance the participation by actually creating some things that are group and some things that are individual. So now I've created my groups. I've created the assignment, but at the bottom of the assignment page in the edit box or edit view, what you want to make, and this is so important, I don't know how to stress this enough. At the University of Michigan Dearborn, the Canvas default is that it is not a group assignment, but it will show a group set. And the default set for us is project groups. That's the name of the default set. You must tell Canvas that this assignment is going to be a group assignment. So you have to poke right there first. But then don't forget to select the correct group set, because if it stays in the project groups, then everybody is in that group. There's no differentiation. If you create or poke on the correct group set, what happens is that it will then, Canvas knows that it has to divide this into the 5 groups that you've created or 5 teams you've created for this research project. And I think the important thing to note here is, and I don't know why Canvas does this, but the Canvas faculty guide that's online, if you go to it, it also indicates that you cannot, once a student has submitted something to this assignment, if you've picked the wrong group set or never, in my case, forgotten to pick the correct one, then you have to grade everybody's individually. There's no group differentiation. So once a student has actually gone in and submitted something, you can't fix this. That's why this is so important to pick, not only to tell Canvas that it is a group assignment, but then to let Canvas know which group set to put this assignment in. You have to do that right in the beginning. I don't know how, I forget it all the time, and it's really a pain. So now it appears in my module view. You can see that the group charter contract assignment now is under homework, and it's all set up. When the student comes in and looks at this view, they will see that group charter contract assignment. But when they poke on it, only their group mates should be able to see the submission. But if we were in a classroom doing an assignment in groups, you would have these students, huddled around a table. They would be writing this collaboratively, working, talking to each other. Canvas doesn't give us that unless we create multiple places, venues on Canvas for them to collaborate. And this is
right here. I'm going to stop you because we have a really good question that was posed by Sue Collins. Essentially, she was wondering about the advantage versus the disadvantage of keeping groups the same, throughout such a large portion of the course. I was beginning to explain to her about how you use a charter, a contract that the group actually creates themselves.
Yes.
So that they are much more beholden to that contract that they all agreed to from the very beginning, and then they work together under the terms of that contract.
Right. In fact, during my longer terms, the 15-week full terms, I allow students to create what they would, if they were king or queen for a day, create an ideal group charter. What do you want? What would an ideal group that really is working together well, what do they look like? How do they behave? What are the rules and regulations of a great group? And then I have them actually once they've selected their own group mates for this 5-week project, I teach them how to synthesize, and this is a writing thing, but everybody has their own ideal contract. Now you have to combine that in some logical way into one group charter that everybody in the group will agree to do. And so it does create that sense of not only collaboration, but they get to make their own rules. And I tell them it's important to have consequences. So if somebody doesn't show up or doesn't answer or doesn't post the work or whatever it is that you want, what will you do? I've had people say, well, he has to bring pizza the next time we go to class, or, there are a number of things that they come up with. And then by everybody submitting that contract, everybody in the group has agreed to behave in the way the group has indicated they want.
Okay, and Sue then was talking about using the groups for discussions instead of large research projects, and then that would make sense that you would change the groups up for individual discussions.
Well, I have individual discussions amongst that group. So for example, in the very beginning of the course, I do have individual discussions and I will have random groups. So I'll have different groups. But once they've gotten to know each other, usually after midterm, then I I actually spend some time teaching them how to select each other, like not just to pick your best friend sitting next to you for the last 4 weeks or whatever, but actually how to look at some of the work that they have posted online to see if this person might be somebody you want to work with. So I do encourage, random and even student selected groups in the very beginning of the term. But once they get ready to join this larger project unit, then they need to stick with, unless I do give them in the longer term, 15-week term, I do tell them, if you really find that, after up to 2 weeks, if you cannot work with somebody, I do give them an option of voting somebody off the island. But they have to talk to me about it. Everybody has to agree. And I actually had a group once that they voted, there were in a classroom, I had 3 groups that voted one person off of their island. And those 3 people called themselves the rejects. And they actually came up with the best project deliverable at the end of the term. So it was kind of an interesting experiment in collaborative teaching. But
okay, you're at 149, so let's move on.
Okay. So now I'm talking about, again, the group set is like an umbrella inside the gradebook. And I have selected, you can see here, I've gone back, after I've created the assignments, I have gone back into people. Then I find the correct group set. So I'm in summer 20 research teams, and now I have 5 research teams here. Again, now if I go over to these little tiny buttons over here, and if I poke on that, it'll give me an option to go into a group, individual groups, how do I call this, space on Canvas. So Canvas will give them their own homepage in a way. And that is, whoops, there we go. So here you can see I'm in summer 20 research team 1. So only research team 1 students, if I poked on that little people right here, you would only see those 5 students who are in that group. They have their own announcements. They have their own homepage. They can post all of the stuff they want to. They can post their own discussion, or they can answer or go to discussions. They have their own files. And if they're doing research, this is where they might share some of their research or put their links in or whatever. You can see that the students then, at least, and I teach mostly sophomores and juniors, the students have a lot of control over this. And I think the interesting thing, and I don't know why Canvas does this, but if you've created a group discussion and you've segmented it into the group set, it'll appear automatically in every group's discussion board. So you can see right there, it would actually be there already. I don't have to do anything. But that's not true with assignments, and why that is, I'm not exactly sure. But you can see then, I want to go to collaborations now, because when you're online, you don't have the opportunity to put those people right around a single table. So what you're going to do is create the venue by going here to collaboration. And when you poke on that, it brings up this screen. Now you have here a choice. You can choose to make it a Google Doc. Now I should stop and say that we only have access at U of M Dearborn to Google. You may have Microsoft Teams in this. I don't know exactly, but every Canvas space has the ability to have this kind of a collaborative thing. But in my case here, I can make it a document, I can make it a slides, or I could make it sheets. And then I name this. Now I don't know how many of you have the same experience when you allow students to create their own Google Docs, and if you encourage them or tell them they have to add you, I end up looking through, dozens and dozens of emails trying to find those links. That doesn't work for me. I need to organize this in my own head because I have too many students. So I create all of these for them. That way, what will happen is the students' names will all appear here. All I need to do is drag them into this column and hit the submit button. And what happens is that then it shows up so I'm still in research team 1, and now this is their Google Doc. And I can poke on that. That's a link. It'll take me directly to the Google Doc, and I can look at I've got all the editing, right? So I can look at who's participated. I can tell what days they participated, how much time, what colors were the different students. I have a lot of information just by going here to the collaborations. And what I do, because my project is lengthy and multiple weeks, you can see this group team named themselves Little Einsteins. You can see that I've got multiple assignments. Some of them are, for example, there's the charter. They have to make a Gantt chart. They have to do a lit review as a separate assignment. Then that lit review can go into the final deliverable here at the end. But I also give them a sandbox. That is just open. They can put notes or comments. They can talk to each other, whatever. But all of this is organized for me under that particular group. And so this is, I think, the reason to actually use the collaborations and create groups in Canvas, because it really organizes the students' work and the students' grades for me and makes my life a lot easier. So just to kind of recap, it really helps to have a single group activity or more than one if you have a longer term, multiple week term. But early in the term, put it in your syllabus, explain the importance of group work to the course right in the very beginning. But if you do go to a project or a unit where I have modules by week, but each like 3 weeks, 4, 5, and 6 are all going to be in a group set called research project. That way the students, the group set helps to organize it. I create their venues so that they can collaborate, and it also organizes it for me so it's not chaos, which I'm not real good with chaos. I don't know about you guys. Okay, any questions now that I can answer, because I went kind of fast on that, but hopefully you'll have access to the PowerPoint and you'll be able to kind of go back through and watch those step by step. That was kind of a lot, sorry guys.
Yep. I'm giving the link out again. This is a link that is in Google. It's a PDF that will have all this whole PowerPoint has been compressed into a PDF, so you'll have the whole thing step by step. I use groups typically just for an individual assignment. Basically, I like, I've used it, but at a very simple level where I'll put an assignment up and I'll have them do peer reviews in groups or discussions in groups. So I've never done a large project like that and, over a period of time. And I also really like the idea of the group contract, where they work it out themselves, they work out the consequences themselves.
Yep. And
yeah, I found that they're a lot harder on each other than I would be on them, you know.
That's exactly right. They do hold each other accountable though. And I have a lot less whining in school, in the classroom. It's like, she's not pulling her weight. She's not doing what she said she was going to do. Well, that's not my problem because you have a group charter. It also, the Gantt chart is another idea that I recommend when you have multiple modules and multiple assignments. A Gantt chart is their attempt to actually synthesize everybody's calendar. So I have usually engineering and computer science students, therefore a lot of them have the same grade, midterms on the same day. So that'll be a week that they're gonna say, look, we're gonna be really focused on something else. This is not gonna be a good week for you to demand anything of me. A Gantt chart is like a timetable, and it gives them a really good idea of when somebody in their group is going to be able to help or when they're not.
Are you saying Gantt? Spell that for me.
G-A-N-T-T. It's a person, he was an engineer, and he created this timeline thing. You can go online and there are multiple sites that refer to Gantt charts, how to make them actually, and I can include an assignment if anybody's interested in that. But the thing about it is many of those charts, they take you to software links and you have to buy them. And I tell my students, the first time you go in, you can look at it and for free, but after that, if you go back, then you get charged. So I tell them to be very careful with that.
Like drugs, the first one's free.
Correct. That's right. So.
There's a question, could you give us a sample of your charter contract for group work?
There's actually a number of really good YouTube videos. And what I do is I create in my discussion or in the assignment description, I actually I embed the YouTube video. I tell them the group to watch it. And then using the structure that was in the video that she talks about, I ask them, okay, you can make and I think I also include an article that I found online. So I use all of my resources. I don't have textbooks. All my resources are OER, but I went online and I believe it's Forbes.com, and it has to do with working in a team, writing in a team. So I have a YouTube video and I have this article, and then I tell them, all right, read both of those, watch that. Then using what you've read and learned, create your ideal group charter. That's when, I mean, sometimes they're very lengthy. Sometimes they follow the structure offered in one of the resources. Other times the students just sit down and, you know, from their own previous experience. That's another assignment I do. I ask them at one point to read. It's a wonderful guide from the University of North Carolina Writing Center. And they have a worksheet or a study guide called Writing in Groups, something like that. And at the very bottom of their sheet, they have pitfalls. So I asked the students in a low risk assignment, I said, okay, pick one of those pitfalls and then describe your experience with that pitfall in your previous group experiences. Because a lot of times students, especially in online classes, you can almost see them rolling their eyes when you tell them they have to do group work. They just don't like it. But this is a way for them to actually, all right, unload, give me the horror story, tell me, and then tell me how would you avoid it in the future. And then I have them thinking about, okay, well now what's an ideal group? How do they behave? So that you go from the negative to the positive, and then suddenly you have them bring them together in the groups where they're now sharing all of the good stuff that people can do and the best practices of a good group.
I have one quick question, and it's kind of specific to working in teams. And when we moved online, we did some presentations through there, and the students uploaded some of their files. And I guess my question is, and I don't know if this would be an issue, if you had people working in teams, they have access to other people's files. Would there be an issue with like them deleting files or changing files? Whereas in Google, right, it's only the people that are approved to see those files.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand. When you're talking about files, are you talking about the files in their team, in their group?
Correct. Like they've created, like they put up their presentations, or let's say they're working on this research project and that's where they're storing it. Now everyone in the class, because that's what our team was, a class, would have access to that. Is there an issue with that? Or would you feel like people could go in there and, be mean and delete that file or make changes to it? Or
okay, if there's a way I can get back into my PowerPoint, let me see.
Catherine, you're talking within Microsoft Teams, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you use Teams then from Canvas, the only people with access to those teams is that group in Canvas. Is that correct?
My understanding is, in the past, I haven't set one up, but I've attended them. So my understanding is.
We can't hear you, Kelly.
Oh. How about now?
That's better.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know. It's unmuted here, but okay. I was saying, I have been a part of the teams and been invited to them and attended them, but I haven't set one up. But my understanding was you would invite whoever you want into it, but maybe someone else can address that if they've used the Microsoft in their course.
Kelly, can you type that into chat? We're losing your audio.
Yeah.
Sure. I think what she said was if you're invited into Teams, everyone has access to those files. And that's
Is that
what
right?
that's what I've always done, but I didn't know if there's a way to then minimize who had access to what. But I mean, I guess you could always recommend that they keep a backup, separately than there. But I was just curious.
I'm wondering if what you're talking about, though, is if it's a whole classroom. If you were to divide your class even into two groups, then only the files that one group, then the other group would not be able to see it. So I'm thinking,
yes,
right,
I
okay.
think you're right. Yes, thanks.
Yeah, I pulled this back up because I do talk a lot about plagiarism. I talk a lot about one's responsibility. Again, we have as a learning objective, how do you work in a team? But you can notice in my language here, which is in my syllabus, that it is your responsibility to participate and be as collaborative, blah, blah, blah. So we talk about ethical and integrity, ethical behavior in groups a lot. And therefore, in a way that my students know that's going to figure into your final grade. If you're not participating well, if you're not sharing well, does not share well with others, that's going to affect your final grade. So you can be an A writer, an A student when in writing, but you can be actually a miserable group mate, and it's going to affect the way the group grade that you get. So,
And do you utilize peer evaluations in these group work too?
Everything that I do, my students do an individual reflective piece, a memo that where they actually are, you know, reflecting not only on their own behavior, their own work, on what they learned from the way they acted in this group and what they'll do differently in the next group, but also on what their teammates did, how they did it, what they think, you know, how did that affect the way they behaved, that sort of thing. So we do a lot of reflective writing in my classes, yes. I think we've gone over, am I right?
Yes, we're done.
If anybody needs any information, I'm happy to share any assignment information or links to YouTube videos or any of those things. I don't know exactly how to, you know, if you can get in touch with Rhonda or Kelly or any of them, I would be happy to share that with you. So
would you want to put your email, your U of M email on here?
That's a great idea. Let's do that.
Do you want to do it in chats, or just, is it Pam, Pete, what is it? What's your name?
Thanks. I'm glad that you know who I am.
Okay, you did it.
Yes.
And then any other resources, if you give them to me, I'll put them in the right Google folder for the whole symposium. Okay.
Well, as people need, you know, suggestions, hopefully save my email. Just tell me that you were in this and let me know what you're struggling with. And I've got so many resources and YouTube videos and TED Talks and dozens of things that I'd be happy to share, but it's just a lot to kind of figure out what you might want. So just let me know. Be happy to. Thank you though.
Thank you, everyone.